Hello, Algebra 2 students. Today we're going to learn how to graph quadratics in vertex form. So I have a graph up here. I'm just going to put up an equation and we're going to look at the various different parts of it and try to get a nice graph of our quadratic equation. We're going to start off real simple. Y equals x minus 1 squared plus 2. Okay, so from that equation, I'm able to find the vertex. The vertex is going to be 1, 2. I also know the a value is 1. So now I can plot my axis of symmetry is also going to be x equals 1. So I can plot a couple different things on my graph here. So let's plot the vertex here, 1, 2. And then the axis of symmetry is going to go right through there. So I'm going to go ahead and graph that. So then how do I know if my graph opens up or down? So I'm going to look at that a value, and a is positive, so it's going to open up. Now, there's a 1 here. So since there's a 1, it's going to follow the 1, 3, 5 pattern. So to get the rest of the points on the graph, all I have to do is just go up 1 to the right 1, up 3 to the right 1, and then if I had enough room, up 5 and over 1. And then you just use symmetry to get the other points on the graph. And here's a nice sketch of this quadratic equation. Okay, so let's just walk back through it. The first thing I did, I looked and I saw the h value of 1 here, and then the k value is 2. I know that a is 1, it's positive, it's going to open up. It's going to follow the 1, 3, 5 pattern. And I also know the axis of symmetry. So the next thing I did was just plotted the vertex, and then I put in the axis of symmetry. And then I followed the 1, up 1 over 1, up 3 over 1, up 5 over 1 pattern and got my graph. And that's basically how you do it. So let's try another one. Here's our second one here. Number 2, y equals, let's put a number in front for the a value here. Let's put a 2 there. So let's say I have 2. And then x plus 1 squared, and that's it. So from here, I know my a value is 2. It's positive. It's going to open up. Instead of following the 1, 3, 5 pattern, I'm going to take 2 times 1, 2 times 3, 2 times 5. So it's really going to follow the 2, 6, 10 pattern. And then I'm going to find my vertex. So the vertex is always going to be the opposite of what you see here. So it's going to be a -1. There's nothing here, so it's going to be 0. And my axis of symmetry is always the x value of the vertex, so it's x equals -1. So with that information, I'm just going to come over here and I'm going to plot the point. -1, 0 is right here. I'm going to dot in my line of symmetry. Right there. And now I'm going to use the 2, 6, 10 pattern to get the rest of the points on my graph. So I'm going to go up 2 over 1, and then I'm going to go up 6 over 1, and then I'm just going to use symmetry here to get the rest of the points on my graph. And that's just a quick sketch of what's happening here. The next one, the next example, let's try one where x is negative and where we have a half in front of it. So, okay, number 3, y equals -1/2, and then I'm going to have x minus 4 squared plus 5. So my a value here is -1/2, so that tells me that it's going to open down. And then it's a half, so I'm going to take a half times 1, a half times 3, 1.5 times 5. And so I get 0.5, 1.5, and 2.5 here. So it's going to follow the 0.5, the 1.5, and the 2.5 pattern. I can also find my vertex. My vertex is going to be 4, 5. And my axis of symmetry is x equals 4. So now with that information, I can come over here and I can plot those points. So 4, 5 is right here. I'm going to have my line of symmetry going right through that vertex. And then to get some other points on the graph, I'm going to follow this pattern here. So I'm going to go down because it's a negative value here. So I'm going to go down 1/2 and over 1. So I'm right in the middle there of the graph. And then from there, I'm going to go down 1.5 over 1, down 2.5 over 1. And you just repeat the same process and just use symmetry to get the rest of the points on your graph. And there it is. Nice little sketch of the graph. So now that we've learned how to graph, let's go the opposite direction where I give you a graph and you have to write the equation. So let's take a look at a few of those. So all I'm going to do now is I'm going to just put up a graph and you have to find the equation. So let's do a real simple one to start off with. And it looks like this. Okay, so my vertex here is 0, -4. So I automatically know what h and k are. Okay, h equals 0, k is a -4. So that's going to help me. I also know my a value here because it's following the 1, 3, 5 pattern. So a is going to equal 1. And so now I just fill it into my equation. Remember, vertex form is going to be y equals a times x minus h squared plus k. So I'm just going to fill it in. I don't really need to write a 1 in front, but if it helps you, you can go ahead and do that. But it's going to be x squared. Now I don't need parentheses around it because it's x minus 0. I'll just sub it in for those of you who need to see it. And then minus 4. Then whenever we have an x minus 0, it's going to be x squared minus 4. So y equals x squared minus 4 would be the equation of the parabola that's graphed there. So let's do another one here. So this one's a little bit different. We see that it's opening downward, so we know A is going to be negative. I know my vertex is at 3, 4, so I can write in that. And then it looks like I'm going down 3. This is a 3. And then we have down, oh, I think I calculated it. No, I didn't. And then we got down 9. So it looks like it's going to follow 3, 9, 15. So that's 3 times 1. This is 3 times 3. And this is 3 times 5. So that's the pattern. So I'm thinking my A value is a -3. And then again, all I have to do is just sub in these values. So y is going to equal a -3. And then x minus 3 quantity squared plus 4. And that's going to be the equation of that graph. So let's go ahead and do one more. So let's say this is your graph right here. and that's your parabola right there. So we know we're going to have a vertex. Looks like it's a -3, -7. And it looks like I'm following a half, 1.5, and then the 2.5 pattern. So I'm thinking my A value is going to be a half. And so now I have all the information that I need to write the equation. So it's going to be y equals 1/2 x plus 3, quantity squared, and then plus minus 7. And that'll be the equation. So for this assignment, you have 2 worksheets, one where you're going to practice graphing, and then the second one, you're going to actually get the picture and you write the equation. So that's it for section 3.5, and then later on we'll move on to the next section, learning about the quadratic formula. I hope you enjoyed these videos, and I will see you soon.